My dad was married to Jane Bowen was her name before she got married, and it's Bowen, and it's a real old Youghal name. And he had three of us. There was Margaret was the eldest, and Susan, and then me. So just three girls, no boys. Well, would you believe where we're talking now is where we lived. This is the old house, the old family house. I was born here and I'll be carried out in a box. So all the work my father did with his films was done in this house. This is Strand Street in Youghal, and we're near the Lifeboat, which, looking at his old films, he did an awful lot of work around the lifeboats. And old Youghal, where you have the town hall now, and you have the wide road, that there used to be a fantastic wall the whole way around there, where we played around where we were young, and you can see them in the old movies, the beautiful wall. Oh, we had a great childhood, because when we were young, you're talking about back in the 50s, there was no television, there was no mobile phones, there was nothing. So everything was outdoor. So that's why my father got so interested in filming, because he was just mad into this. So there was nothing to take his mind off it, like television or anything. So he'd go off every weekend with his camera, and anything that was happening in Youghal, he filmed it. And what we have today are the results of everything he filmed. And he started around 1956, 57, and he goes up to the 70s. Yeah. Well, entertainment was brilliant because, of course, Youghal was full of shops. There was every single place was a shop. All the shops were open, and you had a load of little sweet shops and a load of toy shops, and a lot of them are in my father's own movies, where now you go uptown, a lot of them are gone and have been replaced. And we had the dance halls, then we had the showboat, we had Red Bar, now we had fantastic bars. We had the Atlantic, where we used to go out for drinks, and of course that got burnt down, and in my father's old movies you actually see it when it was burnt. But one part of it you can actually still see the name, the Atlantic Hotel. The fire brigade all his life, so he took a lot of photographs of the different fire engines that they had over the years. So then that was fairly near the lifeboat station, so he took a lot of photographs of the different lifeboats. One of the famous ones was the Grace Darling, and he actually did a beautiful model of her in Matthes. And the Grace Darling was actually the last big lifeboat here in Youghal. Then they kind of got smaller and more advanced and faster, and you can actually see the Grace Darling lifeboat in his old films. Well, you walk down now past the town hall, down to the quay, before you come to the quays bar, and there's a big car park. Well, when we were growing up, it was actually called the Burn Stores, and what they used to do there was they used to slaughter cows. And when they'd be doing it, we'd go down and we'd be trying to peep in to watch them slaughtering the cows. I know it was a terrible thing, but we were very young, we didn't understand what was happening. And one day a cow actually escaped, and he came up Strand Street, running up Strand Street, roaring, and oh my God, I think I was about 3 or 4 at the time, and that stays with me. And right next to that were all the creels, the cribs, where the fishermen would actually mend the nets. And my father was lucky enough to actually film those creels, and you can see the fishermen, especially you see the hickeys coming along in their fishing boat, and then you see them mending the nets, and that's all in my father's movies. Sure, it's gone. It's the car park is there now, so that's real history, and it's lovely to be able to look back and see them. So that's why film is so important, very, very important. Well, it was very expensive because he was working in Farrell's shop, and at the time, you're talking about now back in the 50s, shop work was very badly paid. So then he joined the fire brigade, so he had a little bit extra money. And he was just always very interested in film and anything to do with film. And he started off with he had his 8mm camera, and then he started getting projectors. And he just kind of grew from there. He was just very interested in things, and he just got totally addicted to filming. So we actually have a lot of the old kind of reels where the film used to go on to, and then he'd send them off, and then we'd all be excited waiting for it to come back, and then he'd get out the projector and he'd show the films, and sure, we used to be over the moon, because this is, well, I'm 65 now, but I was actually 16 before we got a television, so the home movies was our whole life. Friends used to come in, and he actually knew a lot of people out the country, and he used to go off out the country with his projector and his screen. He has a big, huge white screen. I still have the white screen. It's over there in the corner. And he used to go out to the different families out the country, and he'd show them to them. And I have some lovely letters from different families thanking him for actually going to their houses and showing them the films, because there was nothing else at the time. Oh, actually it was even better, because we were there sitting down by the fire, and we'd have our cup of tea and our little snacks, and it was just so exciting, like. Plus we were among friends, we were among the family, and that made it very precious, because nowadays a lot of families with television and videos and everything like that, a lot of the family orientation has been lost. But back then it was very big, the home movies. Well, it was home, that was the thing. Now I'll tell you this, like as I said, we used to love being here at home and having the screen and the fire and our cup of tea, and we were there and watching, but what we were watching was actually Youghal and what we knew. But then you see, we had the Regal cinema, we had Horrigan's cinema, and we used to go there to see a different world completely, something we knew nothing about. And you'd go in and it would be sixpence for the gods, it was called the gods, and then ninepence as well. So back then sixpence was a fortune, and there was 3 of us in the family, and we used to take it in turns, because one week one of us would get to go, because the 3 of us couldn't go together, because you'd be talking about 3 sixpences, and it was just too much money. So it was the highlight of our week when it was our turn to go to the pictures. And I'll always remember, in particular, there was a film on one Sunday afternoon. We used to go for Sunday afternoon, and it was a cowboy, Audie Murphy. A lot of people now probably wouldn't remember him, but I remember coming out, and it was over at 6 o'clock, and I came out, and I always remember it was dark, and it was just, that memory is with me, Audie Murphy and the dark. It's a funny thing, like, but, and this was a cowboy movie, and we thought we were over the moon to see a cowboy film, whereas nowadays a lot of them, You know, a cowboy film wouldn't really mean anything to a lot of people. I think it was so exciting. It was so different to our lives, and like the fact that the good guys always got the bad guys. It was totally different to real life, and you could get lost in it. Like, you know, it was a different world, and we always knew that at the end everything would be all right. I remember one Christmas, and we were very young at the time. We were about 8 or 9. And it was so strange, because it was like all the children in the street had decided we're all going to get cowboy and Indian costumes for Christmas. Now, it wasn't planned, but it just so happened that I got a cowgirl suit. I remember Ted Horgan got a cowboy, the Watkinses all had cowboys, and we got guns and holsters and cowboy hats. And it was just like as if we planned it, but we didn't actually plan it. But the whole street were dressed up as cowboys and Indians. We were only 8 and 9, and my father caught the whole thing on film. We take on anyone because the good guys always win. On a Tuesday night, and I think they still actually practice it for Tuesday night, they used to go to Whitegate, and they'd have kind of mock fire practices, and they go through the whole thing, and they actually cut that on film, and you can see that in his own movies. Don't talk to me about Procession Sunday, because he actually filmed the procession from when we actually started school, because once you started school, every year you had to take part in the procession. So he's every procession year after year when we were young. And I mean, the procession was a huge thing in Youghal, because the whole town took part. Every group, every society. And there was the Children of Mary, and they're not there anymore. And as kids, we were fascinated by him, because they wore these blue outfits and these veils, and we were just used to be blown away by him. But the procession was so big, it was filled Green Park, because we go out to Green Park, and then the ceremony would be out in Green Park, and the whole of Green Park would be chock-a-block with people. Then when it was over, it would go back up the town, up to the church, and there'd be another service, and then the whole day was kind of celebrating the procession. And they came from all over to walk in the procession, and they're there on film. You can watch them, but you just won't believe the crowds of people. I used to love it. Yeah, I used to love it. Yeah, it was different to now, like, because everyone took part. Like, you know, you just felt a part of something, and the atmosphere was brilliant. Yeah. And for some reason, the sun used to always shine, because if you look at the old movies, when it's never raining on the procession, the sun is always shining. So we were guaranteed a fine day when the procession would be on. So if they had a procession every day, it would have been fine, because we get no rain. My father captured very, very well. I don't know what he was called, but he was the man. They were men, and they had the stick. And he'd keep you in line. It was like cattle, the way he'd be hitting the people, with not actually hitting them with the stick, but he'd be keeping in line with the stick. And if you actually watch the old movies, it's done brilliant. And here he is with the stick, and he's keeping everyone in line. So God help you if you went out of line, like you got a belt to the stick. Yeah, I remember that. That was brilliant. Yeah, the old stick. And they used to be there with the stick. I'm sort of forgetting that, actually, Michael, about the stick. Oh, completely different. Completely different. It's even hard to explain how it was so different. I think the only way I can explain it is there was kind of an innocence about it, kind of a goodness, if that makes sense, and a safeness. You know, it's like anything was possible. different times completely, different times, and everybody knew everyone, and everybody kind of looked out for everybody else. And even there was one woman, she was one of the first women to get a television. She lived in Friar Street. She was an old lady, and none of us had television. And of a Sunday, all the children from the street used to be allowed into her house to watch the talking horse, Mr. Aid, but we used to have to pay her sixpence. And the whole place would be full of children. We were all sitting on the floor, and she had this kind of colour paper over the television, because it was a black and white television, and the colour paper made it look like a coloured television. So, I mean, the floor would be full of children. So, I mean, she made a fortune, like. Well, I was here one day, and there was a knock at the door, and it was Dr. Matthes. And he said he had been talking to somebody from RTE, and they were filming something to do with Ryan's daughter down at West Cork, and they were talking about old movies, and however my father's name came up, his name came up, and they told them in RTE that he had old films, so they actually called and asked to see the old reels, and when they saw the reels, and that was old archives of Youghal, they were very interested, so they asked if they could archive them, and that they'd give me copies and actually clean up all the old films, which, I mean, you go back 1950s, 60s, so they were very, very old, and they cleaned up all his work, and so it's kind of, it's there forever. He's gone, but his work is there forever. It's very important. Archiving is very, very precious. So the people that do this work do great work. Actually, it's not actually a job, it's a dedication, because it's very hard work. Very hard work. Well, it's part of our life. It's our life. It's part of who we are. It's kind of like a part of our DNA, really, like, because you look at that and you just see memories, and he would want it to be protected, because he spent hours and hours and he put so much work into it. It's only right that it be remembered and looked after.